Hey there guys, Nordic Warrior here, welcome back to my video game review series. So those of you who have been following my channel will know that recently I've been reviewing several games in the Rayman series. Today we're going to be talking about Rayman 3 Hoodlum Havoc, released in 2003, developed by Ubisoft. So I actually own two different versions of this game. I have the original Xbox version from 2003, and I also have the HD remaster for the 360. From 2011, which is of course the version that you're seeing on screen now. As far as I can tell, the only major difference between the two is that the HD version of course has a graphical upgrade, but as far as the overall gameplay goes, it's practically the same game. So just like Rayman 2, the game is a third-person action-adventure platformer where you play as Rayman. In the beginning of the game, a black lum named Andre appears and transforms the red lums into black lums, and manipulates them to join him. They eventually transform into an army of villains called Hoodlums.
What'd I tell ya? Here come the thugs again!
As they capture various tribes of teensies and lock them in cages, Andre plans to corrupt the heart of the world, to turn every lum into his own personal army of Hoodlums and basically take over the world. Rayman, along with his best friend Glowbox, will have to traverse through the game, defeat the Hoodlums, stop Andre and save the world. A fairly simple plot. Quite a huge chunk of the plot actually revolves around the main villain Andre getting trapped inside Glowbox and Rayman having to find a doctor to try and get him out. It's quite bizarre and quite funny.
Ah, I see you swallowed a black lum. We will need to resort to drastic measures.
The gameplay and controls feel very similar to Rayman 2, which is a good thing in my opinion because they were already pretty solid and it has an air of familiarity about it. Rayman can traverse the levels by running, jumping, hanging and using his hair as a helicopter. The overall platforming mechanics are pretty awesome as they usually are in Rayman games, and Rayman's movement feels just as smooth and fluid as ever. The combat of the game is pretty familiar too. You can punch enemies with Rayman's fists and once again you can charge up your attacks by holding the attack button. The longer you hold the attack button, the more damage you do. You can also curve your attacks to get around obstacles and avoid certain enemy shields. A new feature they added this time is the ability to find certain power-ups throughout the levels. These power-ups are called laser detergents.
Very stunning!
These temporarily give Rayman a specific ability that will often be needed to reach a particular area, remove a particular obstacle, or defeat a particular enemy. They can also be used on occasion to obtain certain collectibles. They also change the colour of Rayman's outfit for a short time as well. Some of these detergents will need to first be unlocked by defeating an enemy. These power-ups include turning Rayman's fists into big metal ones which make his punches considerably harder and more effective in combat, as well as allowing you to break obstacles out of your way. A vortex which replaces Rayman's punches with mini tornadoes that can be used to blow enemies away or bring down certain platforms to use. A lockjaw which allows Rayman to grapple onto certain handles that can be used to reach new areas by simply swinging to them. These basically replace the purple lums from Rayman 2 that you could swing on there. This is very fun to use. You can also use it to clamp onto enemies, doing electrical damage to them. This is used in some of the boss battles. A shock rocket that gives Rayman a single projectile that can be manually directed towards a particular target. This can be used to defeat enemies, hit switches and even obtain certain collectibles. You also have a throttle copter that allows Rayman to fly using his hair for a short while. These power-ups can be a lot of fun to use and they do their bit to add some variety to the game. The game also has plenty of enemy variety. You primarily fight Hoodlums and these take several different forms. You have standard generic Hoodlums, shielded enemies, enemies that throw bombs, enemies that can't be damaged and have to be avoided, and larger, more durable enemies that you will have to be more tactful to beat. So many different enemies that help to keep the game feeling fresh throughout, and spices up the combat a bit here and there. The game also has plenty of location variety. Each level has its own specific style and atmosphere, and the overall theme of each level is pretty well done. You have several more upbeat and vibrant levels such as forests, and you even have some more darker and more horror themed ones. You also have several unique sections such as a snowboarding level and even a flying level, once again making the game more varied and less repetitive. The game also has some pretty decent boss battles, with the exception of the final boss, which went on far too long in my opinion, and the game's botched checkpoint system made it worse. More on that later. But for the most part, the bosses are okay and I really enjoyed them. The game has plenty of collectibles, including cages that contain the captured tribes of Teensies that you will have to break open to free them. The Teensies that you rescue will have a funny one-liner once they are freed, usually involving them having to go and do something urgently.
I have to go finish inventing chocolate toothpaste, Mom. I have to go laminate my boxer shorts. I have to turn the gas off.
These appeared to get dumber and dumber as the game went on, and some of them actually had me in stitches, I must be honest about it.
I have to go flush the toilet.
You also have various gems that are scattered around the game which give you points. Unlike the previous Rayman games, you have a point system. These points can be accumulated to unlock several bonus levels. Some of the bonus levels are quite fun, such as a retro 2D section, and even a first-person shooter section. These are a fun distraction and will keep you entertained for a while. All in all, the game is a pretty solid experience, but I do have a few problems with it. First of all, as I already mentioned, the checkpoint system is completely botched. The game has certain difficulty spikes late on which will lead to some trial and error, and for some reason the checkpoints for these areas always seem to be placed either before an unskippable cutscene or a pointless hallway section where you will need to recollect the collectibles you just got and retraverse the area you were just in. Would it have killed them to place the checkpoints in a more convenient location? It's not a huge negative, but it's something that bugged me. Another issue I personally had with the game is the overall tone. The game is extremely satirical and a lot less serious than Rayman 2.
I was told that after Rayman 2, I'd be cast as a tormented artist who falls for a girl with great big eyes. And here I am, still playing a sidekick in a low-budget flick. Yeesh.
This isn't necessarily a bad thing, if it's done right in my opinion, but in my personal opinion, the change of tone from Rayman 2, it was just a little bit too drastic for me. Another slight issue I had was the voice acting. Most of the voices are fine, with the exception of Glowbox, who is voiced by John Leguizamo, who in my opinion does a terrible job of voicing the character. His voice just doesn't suit Glowbox at all in my personal opinion, and sadly he is the guy who gets most of the lines of dialogue in the game, and I just wanted him to shut up.
I did it! I knew it would work! I did it! There! Whew, it wasn't easy, but I did it.
It's Andy. I miss him.
I can swim! I can swim!
I don't understand why they didn't just get Doug Rand to reprise his role as Glowbox, since he was the original voice actor for Glowbox from Rayman 2, and he was in this game as some of the additional voices, but I digress. Again, it's not a massive issue, but it's one of those things that made no sense to me. Also, what happened to Glowbox's wife and kids? Did the writers just forget about them? They aren't even mentioned once in the game. So like I said, the game is solid for the most part, but there were a few nitpicks that put me off it for a bit. But nonetheless, the game is a solid platformer and a solid entry in the Rayman series. It's not my favourite Rayman game, I personally prefer Rayman 2 over this, but the game is fun nonetheless, and I would totally recommend it to any Rayman fan. Thanks for watching guys, I really enjoyed playing and reviewing Rayman 3, and once again, I may return to the Rayman series at one point. I give Rayman 3 Hoodlum Havoc a solid 7 out of 10. Let me know what you guys think. Stay tuned for more retrospective video game reviews. Thanks for watching and God bless.